Okay, hello, it's Paul Green here from the business community, and I'm doing another spotlight on with a small business owner, and this time I am joined by Judith Hanson. So welcome, Judith.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for inviting me.
So we've known each other for a few years, so I thought you would be good to have on just to learn a little bit about your business journey and how you've come to be doing what you're doing. So for those that don't know, do you just want to introduce yourself and your business?
Yes, well, Therapies for the Mind it does what it says on the tin, really, helping people with a range of issues, primarily focusing on anxiety and fears and phobias. And I use, again, a whole range of techniques. So I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, I'm an NLP master practitioner, I'm a trained coach, and there's lots of other techniques that I know. So each of my clients, when I'm working one-to-one, gets a bespoke service, and I use from my tool bag whatever is the most appropriate tool technique for them. Yeah, that's probably it for now.
Okay, that's fine. So how did you get into this, Judith? Because I think am I right in thinking your background was historically IT? Was that what you used to?
Yes, I had a long and towards the end very painful career in IT in a large corporate, and that's how I got into it.
Okay.
So I moved out of that. I fortunately managed to be made redundant, which helped financially with starting up a business. And my first business was a training business. So I had been a project manager and I had managed project managers. So I went into training project managers, and that was a very successful business. It was a pretty lucrative business. It did, however, involve traveling around the countryside and at times around Europe or into Southern Ireland. And while I was doing that, I realized how damaged I'd been by the end of my corporate career. So on the advice of a colleague and a friend, I went off to learn NLP, and then eventually took it right the way through to master practitioner. And I was so amazed by the things that happened while I was doing my training, because I saw every technique that I was taught demonstrated, and I then did it as a client and as a practitioner. And some amazing work was done. I thought, oh, yes, I want to get out there. And yeah, well, at one point I was going to cure the whole world, but then I pulled back a bit on my goals. And I had, as part of my trying to sort myself out, learned self-hypnosis in a weekend course. So then thought, yeah, I think I'd like to add that to my bag of tricks. So I went off and trained as a clinical hypnotherapist and as a cognitive behavioral hypnotherapist. And in the middle there, I trained as a coach as well. So, and then, yes, I'm one of those who has to resist learning new things, because I really there's so much out there that's interesting that I would like to learn, but I keep adding to the portfolio. But that's how I got into it. I got into it for me, and then thought, this is amazing. I want to go out and do this with other people. And I love what I do.
Okay. And it's quite a nice blend of things that you've got to offer people.
Yes, because not everybody's up for hypnosis, although it's a lovely experience if you're okay with it. But it's not always the most appropriate thing. So yeah, there's choice.
Sure. So need to have a bit of feedback for some reason. Don't know why. We'll carry on anyway. So I'm not sure how to word this question. So I get little voucher things come up and sort of say, learn NLP in a weekend and what have you. And I guess it's sort of the NLP side and probably the mindfulness and the hypnotherapy to an extent. I guess it's like an unregulated market. So I guess people, can just do a weekend course or something like that and start working in this domain. I know that's definitely not you. Well, what's your opinion on that, and what would you
that's one of my hobby horses, so don't get me going. You might be here for a while. I think the industry should be regulated. I worry that it is not, particularly with hypnotherapy. I had somebody who I met who said, could I come and practice on you? I have done a weekend course in hypnotherapy. Now, my training continued probably over a period of 8 years. The NLP alone was 3 separate programs, and we used to do, I can't remember, 5 4-day weekends in each program. So and lots of work in between. And for my hypnotherapy, I had to do a diploma and have that marked and approved. So I am really, really worried, because I do get clients coming to see me who have not been served well. So they've wasted their time and their money, and in a few cases have been damaged by working with somebody who wasn't experienced and qualified. So it is a real worry.
So what should people look for then? So if they're looking to get help from someone in your sort of domain, then what type of things should they be looking for on the website to give them some sort of degree of confidence that, you know, the person they're potentially engaging knows what they're doing?
Well, look for qualifications. I mean, I list them after my name on my email address, but look for qualifications and then look those qualifications up. And if you get to talk to the person, ask them about their training. You know, it worries me that people come to me and I say, have you looked at my website? And they haven't. They've found me online through a variety of ways, and they haven't looked me up. They haven't checked me out. Now, I can tell them all those things, but, you know, not everybody has the qualifications to talk about. So do some research, look at the qualifications, talk to several people or investigate several people, because it's important that not just that they're qualified, but they're right for you, and that what they do is right for you. So don't just pick somebody online at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're feeling really, really bad, and just go with it. Take your time.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to do some due diligence, don't you? I guess it's
Absolutely.
so easy nowadays, though, just to find someone on the website, isn't it? And just, you know, the website looks good, so you just dive in, unfortunately.
Well, as I say, people don't even often look at my website or look at any of the stuff I'm doing on social media. They just find me and contact me. I mean, sometimes people choose me because I'm close. You know, this is not the best reason for choosing.
No, not necessarily. So how have you found the transition then? Because I know a lot of your work is face-to-face, like live face-to-face. So how was it for you in terms of the transition to I guess, to use the word, pivot your business, given that we've been in, well, lockdown 3 now, I think.
Yes, we are in 3. Difficult and painful, I would say. Some of the stuff that I've done, I was going to do anyway. So when you're working one-to-one with clients, which I love, but it is very labor intensive, and therefore you're limited with the number of people that you can help. So I was looking for other ways of moving online and helping more people. So that is what I have been able to do in this time. I'm finding with the hypnosis, people are worried about doing it online. Now, during each of the lockdowns, I've worked with people I was working with before, and I've taken on new clients for hypnotherapy, and it's worked extremely well. But I've also had a lot of people who, I mean, I had somebody call me this week, and he'd made the decision to make a change, and once you've done that, really you should move into action. But there was no way he was going to work over Zoom with me, despite what I said. And I even offer people a free sample, you know, just come along and try it and see what it's like. And if you don't like it, then no, he's waiting until we come out of lockdown, which might be a while. So it has been, to use the Chinese term, an interesting period and a bit challenging.
I think for a lot of people, Judith, So we know each other through you coming to my networking events, and you run one of my events now, co-run one of my events, so thank you for that. So I remember you actually doing some live sessions when you had the opportunity, like a 10-minute member presentation, and I was quite impressed the fact that you took someone actually through. I think you did an NLP session and a hypnotherapy session, I seem to remember.
And I did a mindfulness session as well.
And I just did the mindfulness one, I remember that. So that was quite a brave thing to do from my point of view. Did you consider it to be brave, as opposed to just doing a presentation on what constitutes NLP or mindfulness? What were your thinkings when you decided to actually do these sessions live?
I think the only thing that I thought was a bit brave was doing it first thing in the morning, because as you know, that's not my best time. But in terms of, I have confidence in what I do. I know it works. I have, evidence from, hundreds of clients that it works. So yes, it's doing it in a slightly different session, and yes, it's not for everybody, but as you know, Paul, one of the things you have to do, whatever business you're in, is stand out from the crowd a bit.
Yeah.
And 10-minute presentations early in the morning need to be really, really riveting. So I just thought, what can I do that's a bit different and maybe make people, and I found, interestingly, that I got much more interaction, particularly after the meeting. People would come up and ask me questions or tell me about their experiences than you would normally do if you'd just done a straight presentation, unless it, as I say, it was riveting or very pertinent to somebody.
No, I thought it was great to actually see it in action, and an experience, a session in those three areas of expertise you have was just a superb way of doing it. And I think it definitely went down well. So I asked people on these sessions, what's your why? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What drives you? What would you say your why is?
My why comes from what I was talking about, the evidence. If you can take, I don't know, just to take an example client, somebody who could not even speak to me on the phone or drive herself to her first appointment because of her extreme anxiety, in 5 sessions later, she was able to do all of those things and more. She was able to go out and socialize. She was able to drive wherever she wanted to. She drove herself to sessions. And in her testimonial, she said, "You've given me my life back." Now, if that doesn't get you out of bed in the morning, nothing's going to get you out of bed.
Absolutely.
It's just a wonderful thing to be able to do.
Yeah. So we're in troubled times at the moment as we're doing this recording. And as we mentioned before, lockdown 3. I believe it's having quite an impact on people's mental health. And I think anxieties and stress for some people is certainly increasing during this time, as the they've got no outlet, have they? Really, not going to work, they're not socializing, so it's all potentially bottling up whilst they're inside their 4 walls or whatever. What are your thoughts on that, and what would you say to people that are feeling that way? What should they do?
My thoughts on that are pretty much the same as yours, and I think it applies across the board. I mean, at the weekend, I worked with one 12-year-old, and I also did some recordings for a 5-year-old, which is about the earliest age that I start, and they are both suffering hugely from the current situation and being at home and not being able to go out and play with their friends. But it's right the way through. I think we are facing a real threat, so there is good reason for being a little bit anxious and therefore being cautious. But on top of the COVID threat, there is the economic effect of redundancy, loss of job, lack of money, etc. And there is the social threat. We are social beings, and we need to mix and hug and do all of those lovely things, and people are craving it. So if you are struggling, the hardest step of all is to admit that you are and that you need some help. Because even I, if I'm struggling, will turn to somebody else. And I obviously know lots of people in the trade. So I will, have a coaching session or even a therapy session if I am struggling. And I've got all the tools and techniques. So, it is not a sign of weakness to ask for help. It is, in fact, a sign of strength that you've admitted you need some help. And then once you've made that hard decision, take action. But as I say, take it cautiously. Do your research, as you said, do your due diligence, and look for the person that's right for you and the therapy that's right for you.
Yeah, I mean, certainly reach out. I've said to people sometimes on some of the networking groups is like, if there's people that are missing, people that are no longer showing up networking, then maybe give them a call or drop them a line and just sort of see how they're doing. It might be perfectly fine and decided that, online networking isn't for them, but, it might be that that they've gone a little bit reclusive or withdrawn, to reach out to someone. I think it's been quite nice, if that's the word, that, when I've been on the receiving end and the giving end, when I thought someone's a little bit low, I've sent them a bottle of gin through the post or something like that. Probably not the best cure, Judith, but just to,
not what I would recommend, but
just to sort of cheer them up a little bit. And then and cards and things. Then I've been on the receiving end of little cards just saying thank you. Totally unexpected, but it's a nice little uplift, isn't it, when you get something like that?
Me too. And I have a sort of personal list of people that if I haven't heard from for a while, I will make contact with. And for anybody else, I am still offering, I've started it in the first lockdown, a free half-hour session. So if you just want to come and talk, because I think one of the problems is we sometimes just need to offload. Often we need to offload about, work or personal circumstances, and we don't actually need anybody to do anything. We just want to brain dump, and I'm very, very happy for people to do that. They can book a half-hour session with me. If they want more than that, then if they want actually some ideas about how they can help themselves, I'm happy to do that in the half hour as well. So I'm making myself available for free if people need somebody just to talk to.
Excellent. It was funny the other day, I got acknowledged in one of my meetings for just having a chat with someone. They said they felt a little bit low and they appreciated, the call. And to be honest, I didn't even know. Well, I'm just having a chat with them as I normally do, and a laugh and a joke, and putting the world to rights. And I had no idea that particular person at that time was feeling low, but they because they never said anything specifically. But obviously, just that half an hour chat was enough to perk them back up again. So sometimes it can just be simple things, can't it? Just a chat, just being listened to, shoulder to cry and ear to bend, something like that.
Just social contact, as I said before, with social animals, and we need that. It is necessary for our mental and emotional health. And I think we're going to have some huge problems post all of this in terms of mental health. And unfortunately, the mental health services available are very few and far between.
Well, they're all they were already under a lot of strain, weren't they?
Hugely underfunded, definitely a Cinderella service. And, GPs who used to be able to, sit and listen and maybe give a bit of help now, just reach for the prescription pad because that's all they can do.
Yeah. Well, let's hope the government sort of notices that and does something after this to, bolster that industry, really.
Yes, let's hope. But I'm a bit worried about the finances of all of that.
Well, yeah, it's all got to be paid for somehow, Judith, hasn't it, at the end of the day? So
yeah, absolutely.
So we've touched on it a little bit, but I'll give you another chance to sort of touch on anything else. So what would you say makes you different from your competitors? Because there's obviously other hypnotherapist people out there and mindfulness people and NLP practitioners. What would you say makes you different from your competitors?
Oh, interesting question. My qualifications, my years of experience. We're up to about 9 now, so I've seen lots of people. The fact that I specialize, it's very easy to say you can be all things to all people, which is why I decided to specialize on anxiety and fears and phobias. So I can do smoking, I can do weight loss, I can do all sorts of other things. But I choose to specialize. And by specializing, I mean, you learn with every single client, you learn something from them. And then I would say, repeat what I said before. The two critical success factors, if I can use that corporate term, for a successful outcome with therapy are the client has a belief that the therapy they're having will help them. You know, I can start with a tiny seed of belief and build it, but there has to be some belief there. And that they are comfortable working with the therapist. So what makes me stand out from the rest of the crowd are that for some people I am absolutely the right person, and I do have people contact me who have looked at my website and say, you know, it looked like you were right, or after speaking to me for 10-15 minutes they've said, yeah, you sound I feel I can work with you. So, you know, I'm not right for everybody, and that's okay. There are enough people out there that I am right for. So it's important to talk to people. When I started, I did a sort of market research and I rang round several people and I got some very interesting things, and I learned a lot about how not to do it. I mean, one guy, after I'd done a sentence, told me exactly what was wrong with me.
Right. Okay.
So look out for that. Look out for the person who can cure you, you know, with no information.
Sounds a bit dodgy. So the other thing I'm going to ask you is sort of in your business journey outside of the current climate, which has been a challenge for most businesses. What would you say has been your biggest challenge since starting up as a small business owner?
Oh, well, I think the starting bit, I mean, I was fortunate because I'd segued from another business. So I was a freelance trainer, effectively. Training business sounds a bit fancy. The difficulty that I had when I segued into the new business was, in the old business, I'd never, ever had to market myself. I left with contacts, and every single piece of work I got came through referral. And, you know, when I mostly worked through other training companies, you know, I would be a long-term resource for them. So marketing was not an issue. So my biggest challenge all the way through has been marketing. And in support of what you do, Paul, I found the thing that got my business off the ground was networking. Now, I didn't find you first, and that was my mistake, but I found you fairly quickly. And again, with networking, you need to find what works for you and what's right for you. But through that, I made lots of contacts, and I got work either from the people I met or from referrals from the people I met. But you do have to be patient. You know, I reckon the first 6 months I didn't get any business out of it, but that's okay, because, you know, the work I do, particularly, people have got to get to know and trust me. But that doesn't matter whether you're an accountant or whatever you are. People need to, you know, get to know and trust you. But marketing is the biggest challenge. And of course, you pivoted beautifully and swiftly, and, you know, you have Zoom meetings still running, but I think it's not quite the same, is it? You don't get that off the cuff chats that you have around a meeting, either before the meeting or after the meeting. Hopefully not during, although in your case it sometimes happens. But yeah, it's not quite the same. So I think, and of course, for most of us, we've had to change the way we work in some way, or even completely pivot what we offer. And that means you're almost starting from the ground again. And as I say, without the benefit of the live networking and having to learn about social media and technology and all of those things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you're absolutely right. You know, online networking is not the same as the face-to-face stuff. You know, you just don't get that ambiance, I guess. And like you say, the preamble and the post-amble and the mixing and stuff like that. But it is a great time to network now, because, you know, it's free to low cost, no travel time, no travel cost, no geographic constraints. So, you know, it's certainly a good time to try out networking. And then also, you know, I've had businesses that have started up since March. This is all they know. They only know online.
Yes.
So
those of us that have the luxury of the,
yeah. So it'll be interesting when we go back to the physical world to see whether those guys actually come out and do the physical stuff, because, you know, this could be a lot more comfortable. Some people that on one level, doing networking this way can be less anxious for people. You're not turning up into a room with 20 plus people in it.
Absolutely. And you don't have to be fully dressed either.
You've only got to dress the top half.
Yeah. And for me, because, as you know, I'm not a morning person, but to roll out of bed and be at a morning meeting, you know, it's about 10 steps from my bedroom to my office. I do not probably do a bit more than that, but it is much, much better. So I would agree. And the fact that you can network. And for me, for instance, so that the pivoting has consisted of having products available that people can buy, so or working on Zoom with me in a group session, so that, as you say, has no geographical boundaries. So I would absolutely agree. The networking, in a sense, now fits what a lot of us are doing, whereas it didn't before. The online networking.
Yeah. So you've kindly agreed to share some of your knowledge with us. So I'm going to hand over to you, and I think you're going to talk about fears.
Yes.
So I'll put you in solo layout, and basically the floor is yours, and I'll see you back on the other side in 3 or 4 minutes, if that's okay.
Okay, well, shout at me if I carry on for longer. Okay, I talked about specializing in anxiety and fears and phobias. So what I wanted to talk about today were the fears and the phobias. So there are a whole range of them, but good topical examples are a fear of needles and social phobia or social anxiety. So a phobia is defined as an extreme and irrational response to something. And that is one of the issues around a phobia or a fear. It is irrational. So what people often try to do, either to themselves or to other people, is to talk them out of it. I mentioned before that I'd traveled around Europe a fair bit for work, and I had a fear of flying. And a friend of mine had a private pilot's license. So he spent ages explaining to me how aeroplanes managed to stay up in the sky. And it didn't help a bit. And in fact, gin helped a lot more. I'm not doing that anymore. So you can't talk yourself out of it or be talked out of it. And the reason I mentioned needle phobia is, of course, we're, in full flight on a vaccination program. Now, there will be a significant number of people out there who are a very high percentage. I mean, it could be 15-20% of people who have, at some level, a fear of needles. This can be a fear of the injection itself. It can be triggered by people talking about needles or pictures of needles. So I know people who won't watch the news anymore because every single news bulletin at the moment has somebody having an injection and people talking about needles. The social phobia is interesting because people who suffered from social phobia, which is a fear of mixing with people apart from a very small circle in some cases, often nobody at all. So a fear of going out there and meeting people for a meal or in a pub or whatever. For those people, lockdown has been a godsend. The government is telling them to do what their their mind and their body and everything is telling them they want to do, which is stay indoors and not go out and not talk to anybody. Now they are going to have huge problems when we get back to some degree of normality. But I think also the fact that people have been forced into, in a sense, behaving like somebody with social phobia, they will struggle to go back to normal life. I mean, we're all saying, oh, won't it be wonderful? Won't it be wonderful? But it may not be for everybody. It may be difficult. So very quickly, because I'm conscious of time, how do I help people with a phobia? It is one of the most straightforward things that I do, although it's one of the most awful things to suffer from. And I have 100% success rate with phobias, not always with anxiety. That's much more complex, but I have 100% success rate using a cognitive behavioral approach, if that means anything to you, which is basically what we do is in hypnosis, we mentally practice, rehearse being in the feared situation over and over and over again until it becomes okay. And it's as if you had done that. So if your fear is of looking at a needle, one of your fears is looking at a needle, we will practice, not for real, but in imagination, you doing that until you're comfortable with it. And then, of course, you can go away and actually test it out. The other thing that I do is to give people ways of calming themselves down. I give them techniques they can use the night before, on the day. You know, in extreme cases, you can actually put yourself into hypnosis and not be there for it. But mostly I've never had to do that. So it's horrible. It will prevent you, if you suffer from it, from getting the vaccination, which is important for all sorts of reasons. And it is very easy to sort out. And in fact, I'm going to be running group programs. I'm beta testing one this month, and I'm going to be offering group programs to help people get over their needle phobia. And I will follow that with social phobia. So back to you, Paul.
Okay, thanks for that, Judith. Yeah, very real issue at this current.
Absolutely, very topical.
Yeah, very topical. So one last thing that I ask people: if you were just to give one top tip for any business owner out there, maybe from your own experience of running a small business, what would that top tip be?
That top tip would be find help. For most of us, we start as a one-man band and we have to do everything. You know, not only what we do, but we have to do the financial side, the marketing side, the legal side, certainly if we start employing people. And you can't be an expert in everything. And what I found with networking is that people are exceedingly generous with help. Because when you start out, you haven't got a lot of money, so you can't necessarily employ an accountant or whatever. But people will help you and will have low-cost ways of making life easier for you. So don't be afraid to ask. The big advantage of networking is we've all been there and we all remember what it's like. It's not the sort of thing you forget. So we're all very, very happy. I mean, I have often at networking meetings met somebody new and offered to chat to them over the phone separately because, you know, I had a lot of help in the beginning and I know that there's help there if I need it now. So ask for help.
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't do it alone. It can be really difficult running your own small business. You know, I think a lot of people say, you know, it's lonely at the top. So
it's lonely at the bottom as well.
Yeah, probably even lonely at the bottom. But yeah, you know, just go and get in touch with people. You know, certainly in networking communities, you're going to find people that, you know, will help you out without generating an invoice for that sort of help. Yes. Because I think we all want to sort of like pull people up with us, don't we? Hopefully, or that's they're the sort of people that I like to hang around with anyway. So
Absolutely. And it's payback for what you got when you started,
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So people can get in touch with you, judithhanson.co.uk. That'll have links to your social media platforms on the website as well. It's definitely worth getting in touch with you, with Judith. You share quite a few videos on your social media platforms, which is, useful, informative, engaging. So, tune into Judith if you can. If you've listened to this or watched this, then connect with her. I'm sure she'd love to have a connection. So that's it, Judith. I'm done with you.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Absolutely my pleasure, Paul. I've enjoyed it.